Hey everybody, gonna be drawing the Golden Age Green Lantern, Alan Scott, today. Bear with me just a second while I save it over to the page so everybody can see. Then we'll get started. Okay, there we go, cool deal. Now, just in case you're just joining us from the page or from the YouTube channel, letting you know, this is Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern. I wanted to do something a little different today because of the fact that this character is really, really cool. He is one of my absolute favorite Golden Age characters, and especially in the heroes from DC. And he has a totally different disposition in character that Hal Jordan has. You know, Hal Jordan is a little strange, off the cuff, kind of an underdog type, and very self-loathing in regard to the fact that he is not confident as the hero that he should be. He's more of a smart aleck than anything, and he's kind of a fake it till you make it type person. But Scott is a little different. He goes off of he's totally a different personality, and he fits the time frame from when the original Golden Age Lantern was around. He's got that mentality to where he's very patriotic and very duty driven, as it were. And when they changed this character to a gay preference, it's not a problem with the choice because I've got many homosexual friends, and I don't really care about the choice. That's their life, not mine. But the problem I had when DC changed him over was because of the fact that they changed his entire persona and personality from the rugged, heroic, timeless character that he was into more of very self-doubting, self-confident, or unconfident, and changed his personality persona to be more of someone that would be dreading the world finding out who he is and what he's about, and debating with what he's going to confront with his homosexuality, and he embraced it, which I thought was cool. But at the same time, it was kind of an old school 1980s or 1990s type of self-begrudgment, where he held off and he turned into this very odd, almost a pitiful type of incarnation of himself, which I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to go from the whole, what if a superhero had to face that social issue, and I'm cool with that, but I think DC played it completely wrong in the way that instead of him being a competent character, they turned him into a political statement, and that kind of bothers me a little bit. Like I said, not that I care about the preference switch, because I don't care either way. And what I'm after here is pointing out that they changed the character's dynamic as a person. It was just weird. Now they've got other characters that have that same preference, and it's 100% cool. It works. It's really cool. They're really outgoing, great personalities, healthy choices are being made, and not just about making this guy into the Rock Hudson of the day. You know what I mean? If you don't know the story, Rock Hudson was presumably gay and had to deal with all of that as hiding it in the 50s and 60s. And they took that type of real life scenario and put it on Alan Scott in the comic books for that. And I mean, I just thought it was, I don't know, it's just a little dated to me. I mean, maybe I missed the boat on it because I just missed the original character because they changed his personality so much that it didn't resonate with me anymore. And you know, they did the same thing with when they gender swapped Thor. That was a big problem with me too because it turned Jane Foster from the Jane Foster everybody knew and loved into this almost mindless Amazon type character where they stereotyped her really hard, and it didn't stick with me like it should have, you know. And then they tried to make her a very over sexualized version of Thor as a woman, representing, you know, almost a Wonder Woman type, but it wasn't the feminine, prideful feminist. It was more of the over sexualized, now I'm liberated type of feminist action. And it was peculiar the way they did it. And it's hard to say where this character would have gone if they'd have just brought him back and kept his personality and made that his preference and made him deal with that. I would have been perfectly fine with that. But they didn't only just change his preference, they changed the entire character, and it just made it weird. And they used the change in sexual preference to haul the grounds to change him as a person, and it was just, like I said, it didn't work. You know, I mean, if they made the preference on him, that's fine, no problem. They did that with Johnny Storm for a while, and they've done it with a couple of other characters, you know, and I'm cool with that. Fine, whatever. But, and I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea, because it's not me judging the preference at all. I don't care. But what I'm saying is when they go off and change these characters, I really wanted to bring this guy back in a modern storyline for himself, because I would have loved to seen him in a modern style like this. And I think it would have been a way better choice than bringing Hal Jordan back. But, you know, since we couldn't have Jon Stewart, but that's my preference and take on it. I would have liked to have seen this version of the Green Lantern come back in a modernized way, and maybe even a modern suit, of course. Because the dude, you know, the suit was a little dated, but it's just one of those things that went the wrong direction with it, in my opinion. And I still stick to my guns on that one. I think, and like I said, it's not to do with the gay choice. It's to do with the fact that they used the gay choice to over emotionalize the character and change his personality and characteristics, and that was where the downfall was. And I've got a lot of, you know, gay friends that say the same thing. That they say that, you know, he just wasn't the same character, and they stereotyped him and made it a drama about that preference change than enhancing the character, and that just being a tiny bit of his personality. So I hope that resonates with everybody and you understand what I'm saying. But because I just found it odd that they changed him up so much. I did. I found it really strange that they changed him so extremely and then abused it because they went to the ultimate extreme of making that all he was. It was just weird. I've never seen a character get brought out that way and then just completely manipulated to the point of the character's personality being lost in a preference. And I just missed this character being the way he was, because it's just not Alan Scott anymore. And that's the reason I wanted to bring this one up, because of the fact that, you know, if you're going to change or adapt a character, be sure that you understand the character's personality. And just because you modernize him for modern cultural states or, you know, preferences or pop culture or whatever you're doing, make sure you don't kill the character as his original persona and ruin that, because some people just make swaps to make swaps, and it's bad choices. Um, and I think in this one, them bringing him back, them making him um, stereotypically self-loathing and using and abusing the homosexual sexual preference as the platform to do that, I think it was odd. I think it was a bad choice for DC. I really do. I think it was a very bad choice. They should not have done that, because it, like I said, it was just a bad choice. And there's plenty of other gay characters out there, homosexual characters out there that they could have really done well with that angle. And I mean, they could have done it with Alan, with Alan Scott here. They could have done it that way too. But it's just, I don't know. I think someone at DC was trying to make another social swap, as they've become to be known now, because with changing Johnny Storm to African American, the gender swapping of Thor, and the racial swapping of Johnny Storm, and then a couple of others being switched, and now the sexual preference being switched on Alan, which was done about the same time, believe it or not, a while back. It's just odd to see that we've come to that point with these comic books and these great characters, to where we have to manipulate them into different beings to make them still work, when all we need to do is bring them back out, and then bring other great cast members of those other preferred preferences to match up with them. Because we don't need to turn everybody, upside down just to make comics sell. It's strange that we did that. And because I consider myself part of the professional industry of comics in general, and I just find it tough that way, that we've gotten to the point to where most of these characters are being monkeyed with in that way, and they shouldn't. It's not what they were created as. It's not who they were created as. Just with the life and times of any other literary creation, we have to face the fact that, it was white driven at the time, because most of them were Caucasian, Italian, a lot of Italian, a lot of Jewish guys drawing these old school comics, and that was the big thing back then. They wanted to do, they wanted to do what they recognized, and that's why everybody had smooth hair and things like that. And we've got to step up with the modern times and bring a lot of these characters up, but there's no need to change or swap them for that purpose, when we can create just as many good characters and second and third generation comic book characters that are sidekicks and can take over the mantle and hold up their own leverage, like Robin becoming Batman, or a Bucky becoming Captain America, that kind of thing. And I had no problem with that kind of thing, that kind of storyline going on. But I'm not saying that there's not enough diversity, because there isn't. I totally agree that there's not. And I'm a comic creator that agrees with that and acts on it. And I also stand ground on the fact of being a purist, that you shouldn't mess with the continuity of the characters that were already there and made great by that. Being who they are is what made them who they are, and how they developed and how their storylines came about. And just to appease everyone, to bring equality to it, I think that's a bad move for comic books, to just go off and take great characters and morph them that way, because of the fact that it's not helping the situation. It's actually making it worse, because what you're doing when you do that, as professionals, whenever we do that, it damages the longevity and the creativity, because you're insulting the original project, and you tend to insult fans that way too. And I think they fell on their face with this one, with Alan, because I would have loved to have drawn this guy in the original form and drawn Green Lantern and Alan Scott. Would have loved it. Would have done it happily. And would have made DC some serious money for it. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get over that. I don't like the gender swapping and the character swapping thing. It's just not. I think it's too easy to make a new character and bring in new cast, because there's so many loopholes that have not been filled in comics. And with great characters like, you know, the Black Panther and things like that, you know, if we come along and use the original Kirby version and brought that back out to film, I think everybody would have been crushed, because the original version that Kirby had was a Caucasian guy in yellow and red. He wasn't in the black costume, the black, blue, gray costume we know now. He was actually a Caucasian guy. And that's a big thing for me, because of the fact that he went the route he did to be respective of, you know, who is out there right now and was reading the book at the time, rather than making him typical white South American. And you know, because like Charlize Theron is, and a couple of other famous actors and actresses, they're from Africa, and they are just as Caucasian as, you know, anybody else. And it's one of those things people don't understand, that if you don't put in the research for that diversity, you're going to choke it out. But in the same line, though, you have to respect the continuity and tradition of what came before, being there to note and respond accordingly to what comes next. I mean, that's just like watching your mom and dad, you know, that's like your mom and dad doing their craft, and you doing the same thing, but yet you having an upgrade on that, and you taking over the family business, and you coming in and you making choices to upgrade things, which is totally cool with what your parents had planned for you. You know, you modernize it and you improve on what came before. You don't go, just because you change it and make a different model doesn't mean that you completely destroy whatever they put up front. That's a totally different angle to what you got to do with it. And people miss that point far too heavily. And I think Alan got overworked big time with the changes they made, just for sake of going after him, because they wanted to make a homosexual or a gay superhero. And instead of doing the proper thing, which would have been cool for the business, which is to make a new character, they manipulated an old one. And I don't like the fact that they did that, because I work with a lot of public domain characters in Firestorm Comics, my publishing company, and I don't go do that a lot, you know? I mean, I've modernized them and I've made them my own incarnation, but I clearly stated what I was doing and didn't monkey around with it just for political correctness or political praise, as it seems that the big two are doing, you know? I think that's where they made the mistake that we didn't, with where everything's coming around. So if you're working in comics, don't go off and do that and be crazy like that. If you're going to do it, do it. But if not, you know, I mean, if you're going to do it for the purpose of doing it for the story and moving the character along and for creating something new, that's awesome. But don't just change the character just to change the character, because it doesn't make sense, you know? It really doesn't. It's just a selling point, and it's a shallow and disrespectful selling point, in my opinion. So, you know, as a fellow creator, don't do that. I'm going to recommend that you don't, because of the fact that it's not cool. So, And you guys are definitely going to get a dose, on a lighter note, you guys are definitely going to get a good dose of my animated influence here, because this is what comes about in my comic work whenever I lay lines, because this is exactly how superheroes look when I draw them. Because, you know, it's got the whole dynamic thing going on. The big, strong chin, the old school chin, the big blocky fingers with the hairy knuckles. And yes, I put hair on him. A lot of people don't like to do that these days because it's like everybody's, you know, you're only hairy if you're a hipster kind of deal. And that's not so. That's not so. Not so. Not so. I find it very cool, very fascinating to add different aspects to characters, but changing them just for sake of changing them, trying to sell more books, is ridiculous. And I'm going to call, you know, the publishers out on it that do it. You guys, you know, I mean, if you want to make it, like I said, if you want to make a character and you have a different vision of him, that's one thing. I do that quite often. But don't change the character when you got it in midstream just to change it. It's weird. It really is. It's weird. So, and the older I get, the more eager I am to call their bluff. It's funny. And I don't want to disrespect anybody or anything, you know, by calling them out like that. But man, you know, Marvel and Disney know better. They should be building up icons to build up icons and not tear them down and gender swap them just to gender swap them. That's strange. It really is. It's very weird. Now, if you wonder what I'm doing here, his mask is purple, but I'm going to do my typical trimline blacks so you guys can see how this would pan out if I was to do it, because I would shadow the mask like this. Unless he was just in a bright room where you could see it, I would shade this out like this, because purple shows off like dark blue. It shows off black. It doesn't come, you know, it doesn't come off as a bright color, as it were, unless it's a brightly colored mask, which it would probably be more like Batgirl, where it's dark like this, more of an armor or a plastic or a latex kind of thing, rather than being an old school fabric mask glued onto somebody's face or tied around his head, Zorro style, you know, which would make it awkward, but whatever. It's like, Fred, is that my drapes? No, Mom, it's not. It's not. It's not. But and as the ring would be highlighted here with energy, I'm going to put one shadow on this side where it looks like everything's casted off. But there we go. There we have it. Ta-da! We're talking Alan Scott, the original Golden Age Green Lantern. Oh, and another thing, because of the ring being the light source, we would have a minor shadow on this side of things. Even though he's blonde-haired, I want to put just a little bit of a shadow in there because I respect the heavy light and dark, and because of the fact that it makes it look really cool. makes it look heavy. And that's what I want it to look like. I want it to look heavy, like it's got some volume to it. So I'll switch it over this way. That way I don't put my fingers all over it. And just adding a little bit of a texture and a little bit of a, like I said, just a little bit of a shadow to it so that it looks like it's shining from the ring and everybody's getting to see the highlights of the character from there with that in mind. Where the hair kind of curves a little bit. And I do agree, we need a lot more diverse characters. However, like I said, I don't think we should be swapping them to make that happen. I've always thought that was a weak move and that it's unprofessional and, like I said, very disrespectful to the people that came before. All these great characters are out there and all these great creators over time came out and did these books and whatnot, and they put their heart and soul in there, and somebody comes along after they're gone and wants to change all that. I disagree. I mean, if you want to evolve it and play respect to the original character and make it match up for the modern times, cool. I'm all for that. But if you want to make it something new, like a next generation type of deal, that's one thing. I do that all the time. In Catman Evolution, I have the Catman from the 50s, from the Holyoke Productions, and I have Kitten, Catman's old sidekick, all grown up as the modern Catman in my book's grandmother. And yeah, it's just one of those things you have to pay homage and respect to the originals without jacking them up. And not that I'm soliciting or anything, but you can get number 1, 2, and 3 on Amazon. If you search my name or search Firestone Comics or Catman Evolution, you'll be able to find all 3 of those issues. And number 4 is about to come up. Number 4, 5, and 6 are about to come up back to back as regular monthly, and then the title is going to take off from there on a monthly basis. So it'll be cool. But you don't have to buy it if you don't want to. Just a suggestion. If you want to check out a cool method of how that works. But I have a whole universe built around a unique timeline and setup. So you have to understand where and how I did that. But yeah, I see it all the time with these major publishers going off and jacking up their characters, just trying to get throwing stuff at the wall, as it were, to see what sticks, and hoping something comes out of it. And in most cases, it doesn't. We end up seeing a lot worse than better. But this is Alan Scott. I hope you guys dig it. I am going to put a little thicker line right here underneath to shadow that up a little bit. Separate that mask from that eye a little more. But other than that, folks, we are done. Now, tomorrow I have an interesting one coming out for you because it's going to be a tough card for me. But I'm going to do something a little more risque because a couple of people asked. I got something really cool for you. And if you're watching, you'll know. If not, you're going to be really surprised. But tomorrow, I am going to do a Predator. Unmasked. So you won't have to worry about that. I'm not going to cop out with, just the mask and the dreads and the laser. We are talking full-on face, boom, right here. So hope you guys dig it. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit on this one. Check out the Golden Age stuff. I know DC just put out a bunch of Golden Age books for their Golden Age All-Stars series. They did that the last couple of years, and this dude's in 3 or 4 volumes. Check him out. Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern. Hope you guys dig it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with me.